Self-care. It's such a deep, layered word, and for me, it's really become the process of getting to know yourself, showing up for yourself over and over again. In creation of the Self-Care Creature podcast, I want to teach you, too, how to have a relationship with yourself. We're going to dive into the psychological and physiological unfoldings of adopting what I love to call a self-care lifestyle. This podcast is here to help you, the stressed out but spiritually minded individual who can feel that wild calling in your heart, who wants to develop self-care rituals to support your daily living, give you the confidence and know-how to live through your intuition and raise your self-worth. You deserve it. You are capable of this, and I want to help you understand how the hell to get there, what it actually means, and how do you actually live it. That's where my intention is with this podcast. The Self-Care Creature podcast, brought to you by me, your host, Courtney Klopp. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back. Today we are talking about a big topic called mood swings. Whew, okay, I had to really take some breaths, and I've already tried to record a couple times because I just recognize that this is a really big topic. It can get really, really deep and personal with me. I know that it can be extremely controversial. It can be very triggering. Mood swings directly tied with mental health often, at least that's where my head goes. So I will be talking a lot about that and some of those correlations in this episode. And I just want you to know that I really am not trying to offend you or challenge your beliefs in any way. I'm really just striving to share my personal perspective and my personal life story. And I want you to know that I am open to hearing from you. And if I say anything that does offend you or does trigger you and you want to have more of a conversation about it, I would be more than happy to open the doors for that communication. So please keep that in mind as you are listening. And also just another quick disclaimer, my background is as a functional nutritionist, a yoga instructor, a personal trainer, a chef. I am not a doctor, definitely not a doctor, but I am sharing some radical views about alternative medicine. And I even hate that I have to say it's radical views. It's unconventional views. That fall into the spectrum of alternative medicine. So let's get into this. This downward spiral of mood swings is what first comes to mind for me. Of course, mood swings is that swing of there's also, not always, but also an upswing of feeling good and euphoric and just like almost unstably happy. And then that swing down would be, or just not necessarily up and down. That's just how it feels, right? Because we have the feel-good feelings and the feel-low feelings, the not-so-good ones. And then we swing back to anxiety and crying and depression and just not really feeling like our heads are on straight. And it just is like this big hurricane whirlwind of emotions. And it can be extremely overwhelming. It can be crippling. It can be literally, I feel like it's almost like a roller coaster. You don't know which way is up. You're not sure what's going on. And it's just it's like you don't have your grounds. And I do want to say that over the course of my life and on the self-discovery journey, there are quite a few big things that I have learned to be true, but one is that your emotions say nothing about who you are as a person, about who you are to your core. It doesn't mean that you're less lovable, you're less worthy. Your emotions, like when you are in this shitstorm of emotions, it doesn't mean that anything necessarily went wrong. It doesn't mean that everything is ruined. It doesn't mean that you are crazy. It doesn't mean that anything needs to be fixed necessarily. I really feel, and I like to look at emotions as the spectrum. We have a spectrum of emotions, and these emotions, the spectrum comes to this side where we do tend to feel good. It's like the bubbly feel goods, or for lack of a better term in this case, a positive kind of place. And then the other side of the spectrum is the not so feel good. Like you just don't feel, it's not high energy, it's not high vibe, you don't feel great. We can also just, for this term analogy in this episode, it's the negative side of the spectrum. I really don't really like to use the positive and negative. You know, it's kind of just like when we're thinking about food, there is no good and bad food. There's no good and bad emotions. They're just emotions. And they truly are just part of the human experience. Being human means that you feel emotions. It's really a gift of our human experience, is being able to tap into and notice these feelings and notice when things shift and notice how we're feeling. And the more that we can get to know our emotions, the more we can get to know ourselves. And that's tapping into our innate intelligence, our intuition, as well as learning how to support ourselves, because these things are going to come up. Unfortunately, what makes it really challenging is that we don't live in a world today that encourages that at all. We are taught to just not feel any kind of the negative side or like the downswing or just like low vibe. I like the vibe term, the low vibe side of the spectrum. And we are encouraged to just feel good and focus on like being uplifted. And because we've been taught that in our society, many of us are not not educated. We like literally do not know how to hold space for those emotions. They make us feel weird. And like, for me, I get a freeze response. I'm like, oh shit, like what do I do? And so again, it's like all these layers of what we've learned, what's become normal, recognizing that it's okay and understandable to feel this way. But by the end of this episode, I want you to really feel empowered that you do have control over your life, that you're not a less worthy person because of the way that you are experiencing in anything. And when we can have this understanding and this support, I think it really helps us to truly heal. And it also helps us to kind of take a breath and relax and recognize like, oh yeah, I'm just in the waves. And of course, this is all coming back to help us build on and cultivate this self-care lifestyle, which is supporting ourselves, to learn what you need, to learn how to support your well-being and to show up for yourself. Like that's exactly what this lifestyle is. And that means tapping into all of these different layers, particularly our emotions and our moods. So for me personally, I have, like, when I was a teenager, I was extremely depressed. I feel like I had a lot of just bouts of depression in general. I felt very, very much like I struggled with depression. I have a mother who had a lot of mood disorders that I was surrounded by growing up. I mean, even though I went to live with my grandparents when I was 7 years old, I still visited my mom every other weekend until I was a teenager. And even then, if I didn't see her every weekend, I was still visiting her commonly. And she was diagnosed somewhere in there as a depressive bipolar. And I've always had this feeling, this like crazy, like not crazy, I don't want to use that term, I apologize. But just like this inkling in the back of my mind, like digging, not an inkling like an intuitive inkling, but this digging in the back of my mind that anytime I went down a rabbit hole of emotions that I felt crazy, thought that it was entirely uncalled for, I didn't want to be that person, and I was really worried that I was bipolar. And being in the world that we live in today, I was surrounded, but particularly since I have been in chronic relationships, which is like a whole nother thing my whole life, I have many partners that have been like, you know, this isn't normal. I don't know how to support you. You are acting crazy. And like, thankfully, I have been able to I've been the kind of person that has always appreciated honesty, even if, unfortunately, I haven't been able to hold safe containers to have those conversations. So, you know, hearing those things from partners especially did not necessarily make me feel good and like I could grasp it. It made me feel like I needed to fix myself and that I needed to change some shit, or else I would need to go to a therapist and be put on medication and have something like that. Which, side note, I don't believe that there's nothing wrong with that. I think that there is a time and a place for pharmaceuticals, and especially for mood disorders, they help. They can definitely help for a short amount of time if you're not on them. I don't believe in pharmaceuticals for lifetime use, and for me personally, they're not something that are an option in my book. And you can feel however you want about that. It's my personal life, and that's how I feel. For me, pharmaceuticals are not an option. And so that's where this fear came from. I just really thought that I would end up being forced to go somewhere to get checked out, which is really funny to think about it, because when I was a teenager, I actually had convinced myself that I was bipolar. I was just really angry and picky and just like stressed out and mean towards my partner at the time, who I, even as a teenager had been with for going on 3 years. And I remember that I sat down and I told my grandma, like, I really think that I have bipolar, and I want to, maybe I should think about going on medication. And bless my grandma, but she was like, no, I don't think so. Like, that just doesn't resonate with me. I don't think that you need to do that. And of course, it's interesting to see the way it played out. I think that I was kind of just like, okay. Like, I don't remember specifically rebelling against her, being like, you don't understand me. And like, I feel like there was a deeper intuitive sense within my being that wasn't the right answer. And I accepted it. And looking back on what I know about emotions and how and why they end up being expressed, and all these other surrounding factors that come into our life, trauma, stress, the specific situations in the moment, history of specific situations, and even history of situations in our family tree, not necessarily even our lifetime, can all contribute to the way that these emotions end up being expressed. For me specifically, as a teenager, dealing with that shit with that boyfriend at that time, it's like, I don't think we were a good match. We'd been together for a long time. There were little things that I wanted to explore. I didn't know how to communicate that. I was just feeling like I needed to get out of the partnership, and it was really just coming up in turning to medication and being like, oh, something's wrong with me, which unfortunately I think can be a big caveat in this society. And unfortunately, we do see it a lot in children. Our children are being medicated more now than they have ever before. And I am insanely grateful to my grandmother, who just said, no, we're not going to go down that route. So now, as I'm talking this out, that's really fascinating for me to recognize that one of my deepest fears is for somebody to say, I think you have this, and encourage me to go to a doctor against my will. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that, personal choice, but I've actually experienced in my life the opposite, where I was the one that was like, hey, I think I have this, and that person discouraged me from doing it. So look at these stories that play out in our heads. I have had this fear, this completely irrational fear, that I have literally now have an example that I can point out to myself that it did not, like, that hasn't happened, and it's not likely to happen. Even though I have seen it happen to a couple friends and family members, which I think is where that fear kind of stemmed from. So if we reject these stories that we are taught about, talking about different stories now, not the stories that we make up in our head, but the stories given to us by society, that something is wrong with us, that we need to fix something, like, don't think about it, don't explore it, like, go and get checked out and get on some meds. For me personally, I think rejecting those stories means it leads to empowerment and healing, because it's giving you an opportunity to dig deeper into yourself of like, well, what is going on with me? And sometimes it sounds better to just be able to go and get some support for yourself rather than medicated support, and just get on that and not have to think about it or deal with your shit. That's the side of pharmaceuticals that I completely don't agree with. I believe in pharmaceuticals to to get you feeling supported, to get you in a support system so that you can really catapult yourself into feeling better and then take the necessary steps to actually be able to fully heal. And to heal means learning how to be in these negative emotions, and it also can be digging deeper into where these emotions come from, which can, be all different types of therapy. There are traditional ceremonies and just a huge spectrum of however you may want to go down that healing path. But sticking to emotions specifically and mood swings, when we can allow ourselves to be in the shit when it doesn't feel good, these low vibes, and remind ourselves oh yes, this is just a part of being human and it sucks and I don't want to feel this way, but rather than being why do I feel this way? What did I do wrong? What's going on? What can I do to change it? Which is literally, if not faster, the quickness of the thoughts running through my head at times when I don't feel great. It's now knowing, for me personally, it's now knowing that I can just go and sit on my bed and take a breath, and it's really uncomfortable to be in it, but to just know okay, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to do anything right now. And that's just my own personal coping mechanism, because I know in my experience, if I reach out to people, it's I just know that my communication sucks, that I can't really explain what's going on with me. And this is just personally what I like to do. But I encourage you to, and it's messy, right? It doesn't necessarily feel good, but you have to feel out what does work for you. When you're in this space, does it feel good to call up your best friend and be hey, I need to get out of my head, let's go do something, or take yourself for a walk, to go for a hike, or whatever it may be. I love the challenge of being with myself and really allowing myself to be in the shit and feeling out these emotions, because I know that deep dive into myself, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, is helping me move through all of this and be in develop a deeper sense of intuition, because I am unattached to the emotion, and I have created a safe space within myself and my life to be able to express emotion no matter how I'm feeling. I can get angry, I can cry, I can yell, whatever it is as it comes up, and I can allow these emotions to pass through my physical body without necessarily having to be processed through my mind. And I will admit, at the time of this recording, that is something that I'm very much just in the middle of figuring that out. There's just been a handful of times where I have been able to allow myself the space to just cry and figure it out, yell and just be in this negative mess. And I tell you that when negative, low vibe, but when I do that, I it's this crazy feeling of support. It feels so good to be able to be there for myself in that way, and I actually end up moving through the emotion and the shitty feelings so much better, because I'm not trying to hold on to them and pin them down and be what's wrong with you, and look at them. I'm just oh, okay, you're here, just breeze on through. It's this does not feel good, but I'm here for it, and I'm just breathing and I'm crying, and this is what it is. And it doesn't have to be anything more than that. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. And I think that when we can allow ourselves to just express and let things pass through us a little bit more, we're not holding on to something and trying to pin it down, which can end up, and then we can't figure it out, and it causes more anxiety and more stress. And that's the perfectionistic type A side of our society, and my own personality, that's what the fuck is wrong with you? I need to figure this out, and white knuckling it. And it's really that learning to trust, learning to release, learning to let go. And it's even just talking about it, it feels so much lighter. I don't feel all that tension building up in my body, and then it doesn't give the emotion an opportunity to manifest into something physical within my being. It literally is giving it a space, a window to just pass through. And again, it's part of the human experience. It's glorious. We are meant to feel everything, because we're human beings. And it is such a blessing and such a curse. And I'm not saying that it's amazing. Like, it's not amazing to feel low vibe. And when I was, this last weekend, when I came home and suddenly just had this wave of grief come over me, and I was in my car and nobody else was around, and it was nighttime, and I all of a sudden, my music was up loud, and I just let myself cry and sob. And yeah, I had these thoughts drift through my mind, like, if somebody saw you right now, they'd think like somebody died, like, or you're wailing like your life is ending, or like it really seems like something is wrong. And like these little thoughts came to me, but I also let them pass. I didn't attach to them because I don't need to know why I am crying so deeply. I know that I've gone through a lot of shit in my life. I know, especially this last year, that I've been going through a lot of shit. I've recognized that I've never given myself the time to slow down and actually process this stuff. And now that I'm in a place in my life where I can, who knows what's going to come through? Who knows what needs to be expressed? But I'm here for it, and I'm ready, open, and able to let it come through so that it doesn't need to be a part of me anymore. And that's where I'm telling you I've come out on the other side feeling quite a bit more uplifted and light about the whole situation, because I didn't hold on to that shit. I know that it feels complicated to try to explain, but I hope that I'm making sense. And again, just want to remind you that I am open to communication and to talking about this and all of it. But there are some specifics that can definitely contribute to mood swings. And that would definitely be stress, would be number one. Our stress levels and the way that we come to support ourselves through stress. Because stress, I feel like all of our stress often starts in the mind when we are on these loops and we don't know how to get out of them, and we're just like focused, like hyper focused on all these things going wrong. So first of all, if you are spiraling out of control and all of these different mood swings or whatever may be going on, take a look at your stress levels. Like, what's going on that's stressful right now? And how are you supporting yourself? How are you showing up to help yourself mediate those or mitigate those? I'm not gonna search which word right now, but I think you get what I'm saying. You have to learn how to support yourself in stressful situations, and support yourself in a way that cultivates more awareness within your body so that you can give the mind a rest. Because it's the thoughts that are on loop. If you were able, that's why I'm always saying to come back to your breath, because if you are able to just take a breath and be in your body, you can sense what the stress feels like in your body, and I can guarantee pretty much that it's a hell of a lot less than the stress that is in your head, because it's the stress in your head that is making everything else in your body react. The thoughts that are going 1,000 miles per hour that continue to go on loop that tell you that everything's wrong. Actually, you are here, you're doing the best you can. Take a couple breaths, be with yourself. That's one way that we can really start to notice how our mood is being affected via stress. Another way that our mood is affected via stress is food. And food and stress are very good friends, y'all. It's very tight-knit. Oftentimes, we get really stressed out. We get into this fuck it mentality. We want to drink or eat a ton. We aren't even thinking about, what's good or what's bad, or, fuck whatever we've thought about. We're just going in for what we want at that time. Like, give me all the pizza and chocolate. I've had a shitty fucking day. And then it turns into guilt and shame, which is more stress. And then we're on this, I work with so many clients that are stuck on this little roller coaster here between stress and food, and it ends up being a blood sugar roller coaster, because you get stressed out, you eat the food, and then you're on this big high about it because you've just consumed all of this sugar, and then you have this big crash and you feel really shitty again, and it's just like up and down, up and down. So trying to support yourself with a real whole foods baseline, like a real foods diet. Oh, I just said the D word. Really trying to move away from that. But supporting yourself with a whole foods baseline can severely help, can very much help support your mood and these swings that you have. And I wrote a book that can help you maintain this real foods baseline. It's called Real Food Matters, and it's a digital download on my website for $10. $10. It tells a little bit more about my own story with weight loss and things like that, and it just helps you move away from like this quote-unquote diet culture mindset that is also painted in our society, and helps you to establish this real food baseline. And for me, this is like this was probably the number one obvious, like I didn't recognize to look at stress sooner than this, but for me, food was like a big one right in front of my freaking face that I was like, oh my gosh, the more I tried to do elimination diets as I was striving to eat more of a real foods baseline, and have like fumbled my way through disordered eating and all of this shit over so many years now, it was really in the thick of that I reevaluating my relationship with food really directly made me realize just how much food and mood is connected. So stress and food, support yourself, strive to eat a real foods baseline, because things from nature are going to support your nervous system. That's why I say a real foods baseline. Nature. We're going with nature. Everything always ties back to nature. And then sleep is going to be a huge one. Sleep is where we are actually where we are able to rest, and everything rejuvenates and revitalizes itself. And of course, this plays right back into it too. Stress, food, sleep. Do you guys understand now? Are you starting to see this like intricate web of how everything is connected? Because you can't just have one without the other. You can't just eat good and then not deal with your stress levels and think that you're going to be healthy. And it's the same, like, as we start to learn how to support ourselves in this way, it's also an invitation for us to start looking at the shit we have endured throughout our lives. And beauty of it, something that I'm not going to get into now, but this is also leading many of us to want to look at the shit we have endured through our lineage, because trauma imprints on the DNA, they say. I'm not an expert in that area necessarily, but the more I tune into traditional ceremonies and ways of healing that are outside of the traditional therapy and pharmaceutical scope, this is what I am learning. And we're starting, more and more people in our world today are starting to want to learn more about our lineages and our ancestry and where we came from and what happened in our past, so that we can stand strong and be the change, be the person that shifts the paradigm that's happening in our life. And that's a really big, brave, and courageous act, because, like I'm just saying, it's not easy. It's learning how to be in your emotions. And if you're not used to that at all, if you're not used to expressing or feeling, I mean, it's like a jolt to the nervous system. But that's why in all these little ways we learn how to show up for ourselves, so that we can build that container within ourselves, so that our stress response is not so jarred, we're not so triggered when all of this stuff happens, and it's kind of just more of like this slow unfolding process. But with life, with everything, it's an ebb and a flow, and there's no like magical potion, that it's not a linear path, there's no steady line. There's no rules. Like, every single life is different. Like, how crazy is it that every single one of us is viewing life in a different way? Even two people that grew up in the same household, I didn't have siblings, don't. But even two people that grew up in the exact same household are going to have a completely different story. Even two people that, if journaling is their favorite method of working through their shit, they're going to show up and journal differently. We are each living our own individual lives. And it's in this slowing down to commit to show up for ourselves and cultivating this self-care lifestyle that we start to learn to shift our shit. This is shifting our shit around and allowing ourselves to truly heal, to let that healing unfold. So I only got a couple of questions. So many of you were like, this is what I want to hear about, but when I asked for you to reach out, only got a couple questions. So let's just dive into those real quick. How do you recognize your mood is swinging before any casualties? I love this question. How to hit pause, how to avoid it, if that is even possible. Go back just a few minutes ago and listen to those tips that I were giving you. It's that learning to support yourself. It's the looking at your stress response and how you are helping support and soothe that stress response. The kind of food you're eating, the sleep that you are getting, coming back to movement, and just playful movement, not like hardcore regimes by any means. You can also look at your social life and the safe container that you feel with people. And of course, the most important is the safety that you feel within yourself. That's what it all comes back to. And unfortunately, there is no other way except through. You have to go through these things and learn how to reveal all these layers for yourself and learn how to recognize your mood is swinging before the casualties. You have to go in and figure out what that means to you. And you do this by implementing different steps that expand your awareness so that you can start to realize, what does this feel like? I love Brené Brown's work because she talks a lot about shame spirals and guilt and really being able to recognize what that feels like within your body as it's approaching. So I highly recommend any of her talks, any of her books. She is a really big inspiration to me, as I know many other people in this life and on this journey. So the other question was that I cannot define my emotions. I can't understand them. I can't understand where they are appearing from and when they suddenly show up and what to do. So this is just a statement / kind of a question. I'll rephrase that. I cannot define my emotions. I cannot understand from where they appear suddenly and what to do about it. So again, this is all about you have to learn how to define your own emotions. Maybe that's a great journal prompt for you. Sit down and be like, okay, what does sadness feel like? What does fear feel like? Because for me, there's been a couple times, this is a great opportunity for me when I feel like I am being triggered. I'm personally haven't even worked through this yet. I'm just thinking on the fly here. So I can't pinpoint a specific emotion, but when I am feeling triggered, I know that my heart rate gets really fast, that I start to breathe just a bit heavier, that I get on defense immediately and I'm like, what the fuck, blah, 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 blah. And I just want to fly off the handle angry. And my face gets hot, and I can even feel, thinking about this, my eyebrows raise, what'd you say? And so, again, it's expanding your awareness, learning to support yourself and be with yourself in this way so that you can define your emotions. Because, of course, right off the bat, you're not going to be able to, but it's taking all these little areas that I talk about all the time to develop this self-care lifestyle. And that will help you to start to understand, where do they come from? Because I guarantee you they're not just suddenly appearing out of nowhere. But I will say that does resonate with me a lot because I am the type of person that always suppresses emotions, has been taught in my life to, as a child, I was taught that if I expressed emotion, if I got upset about something, that it would upset somebody else. And that taught me to not express that in front of others. And as I got older, I probably my later teens, I specifically remember times where I would be driving, and I think singing is something that totally opens it up for me. I'm starting to realize in my life, which is beautiful, I think, now. But there are lots of times I remember in my late teens driving where I would suddenly get this wave of emotion come over me and I'd have to pull over on the side of the road and I'd just feel like I needed to cry. Or, more often than not, to be completely realistic, I think I only pulled over like once or twice. Oftentimes I would feel the wave of emotion like I'd have to cry. And I'd be like, what is this? Like, nothing's even going on right now. I'm not going to cry right now. Like, I'm talking pro suppression with the feelings, y'all, especially with the expressive emotions like crying. And for me personally, I couldn't understand where those were coming from in the moment, but I can see clearly now and understand now that it's because I've never let myself express them. And so, of course, like, days later or whenever, where my body feels safe and calm and starts to open up, it's going to be like, yo, you didn't process that shit back there, and like, let's move through this, because like, we're still in here rattling around in your heart and in your ribs and in your muscles, and like let's get out. So just be gentle with yourself is the biggest reminder that I could ever give you. Please be gentle with yourself. Please seek out the support that you feel that you need. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to dive deeper into any conversations. And of course, my free Shift Your Shit guide is my number one source for developing this awareness and learning how to be with yourself, and most of all, develop your own unique support system so that you can support yourself when you are going through the shit. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Whew, that was a big heart talk. I definitely shared a lot of things in there that you may not have ever heard me even talk about before, but this whole mood swing and emotions and learning how to be with ourselves and heal ourselves is something that I am absolutely growing passionate about, and my passion for it is growing, and I am just really proud of you for even wanting to be here and hear this conversation. And it would mean a lot to me if you could, in some way, shape, or form, let me know how this resonated with you, because we're in it together. Right? We're building connection, community, learning how to be vulnerable. We're shifting our shit so that we can shift the world. And that's what it is all about. Sending you so much love. Mwah! Talk to you soon. I just want to take a quick moment to sincerely thank you for tuning in today. It really means the world to me that you are here supporting me, listening to what I have to say, and I sincerely hope that it finds you well and helps you wherever you're at in your life. And if you're ever wondering what other kind of stuff I have to offer you, you can check out my free resources or my paid offerings, both available on my website, www.selfcarecreature.com. And if you're looking for another simple and free way to support my business, because woo, small business, you can simply leave a review for the podcast, or even easier, take a screenshot right now and post it and tag me on Instagram. That is the easiest way, and it just builds community, builds connection. I will be able to see it and connect with you then. Thank you for taking the time to do that. Thanks for being here. Cheers.